back in the early 1960s, there was political changes going on in Congo, and governments were forming, and the country of Katanga did not want to be part of the rest of the Congolese, is that how you say it? Government, right? They wanted to be independent. They wanted to be on their own, and they elected their government and representatives, and they were happy doing their own thing. But that wasn't in accordance with the plan of the big players, the United Nations, the people at the United Nations. And what happened was a kind of political back and forth where the elected governments were challenged by a communist-funded alternative party. And the curious thing that Ed Griffin pointed out is that the UN, not only the UN, well, I was going to say the UN and its member states, so America and Belgium and all these other countries, seem to side more with the communist-backed political parties in that part of the world, instead of being sympathetic to the one that was modeling itself on the American system and the American values and the American way of governance, which is pretty interesting because I was recapping I think part 2, and it was saying how the American public were told that all this money that was going over to help the UN fight in the Congo was to repel a communist threat over there. That was the public-facing narrative as to what was going on. But in fact, when the dust settled, when G. Edward Griffin read the books and the testimony of the people and the investigative journalists who were on the ground there, such as Philippa Schuler, it turned out that the UN and the money that they were taking from the American taxpayer was actually going to protect the communist-backed candidate whose name was Patrice Lumumba. I think I got that right. And the tensions brewed and brewed and brewed until, in the end, the UN just went in and slaughtered a bunch of people. They targeted civilian vehicles, civilian infrastructure. They murdered priests and doctors. They murdered foreign nationals, people who had gone out there to retire, people who had gone over there fleeing communist advances in other countries. And the UN just went in and indiscriminately wiped everybody out in basically what amounts to a massacre. During this time, there was a document written by 46 doctors who wrote and were appealing to the governments of the Western world to condemn the actions of the United Nations. That never happened, of course, but that document is called 46 Angry Men.